Good morning. This morning I had a revelation. I was reading a pediatrics article on autism, and something that was mentioned in the article just triggered a chain of thoughts that suddenly I had a revelation that autism is not really a disorder. It's actually a trait that's selected and evolutionarily propagated because it is advantageous for the greater tribe. When I mention tribe, I'm specifically making a reference to a book called Neurotribes. Um, it's a celebration of diverse neurodiversity because autistic individuals they possess certain traits that allow them to contribute significantly to all of humanity. And there was a specific quote that struck me especially because it said that without autism, we wouldn't have a space program. And there's a lot of truth in that because if you go to NASA, you get into any engineering firm, you're likely to encounter a greater percentage of individuals who are autistic. And this is precisely because these individuals, they tend to be very analytic. Uh, they possess a mind that's unlike the average. So you can say they're, in a way, superior to mere mortals. And this is comically illustrated by the character Sheldon in Big Bang Theory because I think most people understand that he's on a high functioning end of the spectrum for autism. I mean, they have superbly analytical mind, and yet they're lacking other aspect of their um, character. So the biggest traits for autism is that they have difficulty with social cues and communication. So in a way, they possess a mind that's the quintessential one track mind. They're the ultra specialized version of the human brain. They can do things that the average human brain cannot. Yet, at the same time, they, in a way, take one for the team because, in order to have such a mind that can do amazing things, they need to sacrifice other aspects that the average human brain can perform at ease, such as reading social cues, communicating, understanding other people's emotion. And I'm not talking about that autistic people are unable to relate to other people's emotion, but in many ways it's harder for them to read emotional cues and understand the social context of a certain situation. So the statement that struck me is the current theory for autism is that during the neurodevelopmental process, as a child is growing up, um, what's often seen in an autistic child is that they acquire certain skills, especially language skills, and suddenly between uh, the age of 18 months and 24 months, they gradually lose these skills. So, for example, these kids they will learn how to talk. They will have about 5 to 10 words, and then suddenly, instead of acquiring more and more words, vocabulary, as the most neurotypical children do between 18 and 24 months, this is the age where usually language explosion occurs. The receptive language is very good already at this age, but the expressive language is usually very lacking. So between 18 and 24 months, this is when I give a heads up to the parents that, hey, this is a very exciting moment in child development because this is when vocabulary expands and their ability to grasp and ability to produce very meaningful conversation drastically increases. So vocabulary typically from 18 months ranges about 5 to 10 words. At 24 months, I expect at least 30 words, and in most children, perhaps 100 or more in some advanced children. In autistic children, this is a time when they start to lose their language skills. So instead of gaining more words, they start to lose their ability to talk. And frequently, by age 2, many of these kids, they became completely nonverbal. And why does this happen? It occurred to me that that statement made in the American Academy of Pediatrics, the Pediatric Journal, it could be that there's the over pruning process in every child as you grow, in all humans as we grow. Our brain actually has less connection as an adult compared to that of a child. This is the same reason that children can often learn a skill very quickly, especially when it comes to language. So I think we all understand that, the meaning of a native speaker for a language, because let's say a child grows up in Japan, and over time, by the age of 5 or 6, he or she has mastered the Japanese language. He can usually speak fluently, understand some fundamental of the written language, and they can grow up speaking Japanese without an accent. So if the same person lives in Japan until, let's say, the age of 24, and then they get transplanted to the United States, that person can and will eventually learn English. It will take a lot longer because the brain becomes less plastic as we grow. But that person would never be able to speak English without a Japanese accent, because our brain has undergone a process. It's called neuronoprony, that we basically we want to specialize our brain, because as an infant our brain is a great sponge and it can do pretty much anything. But there's a price that the brain, if you can do anything, just kind of like medical specialties. The reason why we have a lot of medical specialists, we have ophthalmologists, we have orthopedic surgeons, we have dermatologists, is because no one person can become an expert in everything. So in order to have specialized in certain skills, all of our brains undergo a process called neuronal pruning, which means we actually start out with a great set of connection that connect all of our nerves together. And as we grow older, we actually disconnect many of the connections to strengthen certain pathways. So, for example, if you learn how to weave at an early age 3 or 4, then that pathway in your nerves, in your brain, that gives you the ability to weave, will get strengthened over time. And your ability to play ping pong balls, for example, table tennis, will get gradually pruned away because you either never learned how to play table tennis or you play it once or twice a year. So in your brain, that pathway gets neglected and eventually pruned away. So basically, your brain says, okay, this is obviously not an activity that this person needs to get good at, because he or she only does it once a year. So I'm just going to cut the connection. So after a while, let's say by the time you're 27, you probably will never be an Olympic level table tennis player. But if you keep on weaving on a regular basis, several times a week, you may become a master weaver and become a YouTuber in weaving, for example, and doing something that the average human cannot do, because you strengthen that pathway in your brain that allows you to become very good at something. In the case of autism, I think this is a situation where excessive pruning occurs. So a person becomes an ultra specialist in something. This is something that all parents are familiar with who have autistic children. Their children usually possess a certain very narrow area of special interest. It could be with Legos, it could be with Minecraft, it could be with trains, it could be with dinosaurs. I have one patient who are extremely into sports statistics, especially the NBA. So I think he was 9 years old, and you can ask him the statistics for any NBA player at the time, and he would be to tell you the exact, their free throw percentage, their 3 point shot percentage, how many game they won, what year, and how many minutes they played for each game. This is basically a shocking encyclopedic knowledge of the NBA players. Yet he had problem making friends. He had problem relating to other people, his peers. So I basically think that his brain has become a tremendous NBA calculation machine database, um, but at a cost. The cost that he cannot do the normal things that we take for granted, like understanding a friend's feeling. A friend comes into your birthday party and he's not really talking to you very much. Most of us may sense, okay, something is wrong, and you'll go to that friend and say, "What's going on? How come you don't look so happy?" But for an autistic person, that would be much, much more difficult to realize that there's something wrong in the relationship between you and the other person. Unless something is spoken um, out loud and blunt and taken at face value. Basically, if the friend comes over and say, you know, I felt disrespected because last time when I asked you to help me with my homework, you did not. You were too busy. So that really hurt me. So unless they say it out loud, taking basically literally, uh, then it's not understood. The subtlety of interhuman interaction is usually the most difficult thing for someone with autism. And that's why many autistic people, not all autistic people, they really have a strong attachment to sameness and routines because the unpredictability of human nature and interhuman communication, it's very daunting and overwhelming for them because they think, well, I mean, if you don't tell me that you're upset with me, how can I possibly know? I mean, they don't understand how people can just extract information based on social interaction and body language that someone may be upset or angry. Anyway, so this is my revelation, and most of my revelation occurred before 3 o'clock in the morning for some reason, and I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but that's how my brain works. I have a pretty unique brain too. Maybe not as unique as some autistic people, but we all appreciate what we have and you know take at face value for what we don't, and we make the best out of our brains. Okay? And I hope you have a wonderful day, and maybe this revelation can benefit you and understand a friend or loved one who has autism. All right. Take care. Bye bye.